When it comes to communicating complex information in a simple way, the most obvious methods that come to our mind are things like talk simply, don't use jargon, use examples and analogies that your listener can relate to, use visuals instead of text. And while those things are important, they're frankly pretty obvious if you really sit down and think about it. So in this video, we're going to discuss 3 ways which aren't frankly spoken about that often when it comes to taking complex information and communicating it in a simple manner. Hey, my name is Radeep and I'm the founder of Frantically Speaking, and I love learning about effective communication and sharing those learnings with you so that you can level up your communications game as well. Okay, the very first thing that we're going to talk about. When we think about eliminating jargon or using examples that the listener can relate to, instead of thinking about what those examples should be, a more fundamental question, what we should ask ourselves is who exactly is our listener? And that's the very first tip. Know your listener or know your audience. Because most of the times when you're in the audience and you're not understanding what the person on stage is talking about, it's mostly because that particular speaker does not know what you really understand. And whether you're giving a speech to a large audience or just speaking to somebody one-to-one or giving an interview, whatever the case may be, as long as you know your listener and know one thing, which is what their competency and understanding level is with regard to the thing that you're speaking about, automatically the information that you need to convey to that person will get simplified because your empathy will increase when you get to know who that person really is in terms of their competency. Long sentence. A very simple way to know who your audience is to simply ask the person who invited you to give that particular talk. Or if it's a one-to-one conversation like an interview, a simple LinkedIn stalking can do wonders in terms of finding out what the other person's background is. And if you know somebody who knows that particular person who you're about to speak to, just ask them and try to understand what their level of understanding is with regard to the subject that you're going to be speaking about. And that's how you know how simplified you need to make your information or how much benefit of doubt you can actually give to your listener. To start off the second point, I'm going to borrow a line from the Big Bang Theory. What would you be if you were attached to another object by an inclined plane wrapped helically around an axis? Instead of that, it's so much easier to just say screwed, which is what our second point is all about. It's simply focus on the outcome. Oftentimes when we're trying to explain something, it's very easy to get lost in the entire explanation process of it. But the person listening to us just wants to know what's in it for them and what's the final outcome going to be like. So directly getting to that will help simplify the information down a lot faster. I come from marketing, and this is a core principle we apply when we are targeting any sort of audience. When it comes to a product, don't focus on the features, focus on communicating the benefits. And the last point is to use narrative structures when you're trying to communicate any sort of information, especially if it's going to be complex. You already know this. As humans, we tend to consume information a lot better when it's told to us in the form of a story. So I'm going to go over 2 narrative structures as examples that you can use in various scenarios. The first one is called the monomyth or the hero's journey. This follows a simple narrative of having a hero, whether it's you, a fictional person, or somebody else that you might be knowing, and how that person faces a particular villain, problem, and reaches their final outcome, which is the climax of the entire story. I usually like to use this narrative structure when I'm talking to children and trying to explain to them something that's relatively technical or complex. The second narrative structure is called the nested loops. I like to use this structure when I want to communicate one single outcome or point through multiple angles. The structure essentially means that we say multiple stories but do not conclude any of them until the end. For example, if I'm giving a speech to a large audience with a diverse crowd, there are young people, old people, working professionals, and everyone in between, and I'm talking about something like financial planning. Now, it's obvious that we don't need to get into any technical terms, but if I'm addressing such a diverse group of people, I want to make sure that I'm relating to each of them so that they understand my message better. In this case, I'll use the nested loops technique in the form of 3 stories, where each story will focus on one particular demographic. The first story will revolve around the problems of financial planning with college students. The second one will revolve around problems with working mothers. And the third one will talk about financial planning problems with regard to older people. And at the end of all these 3 stories, we'll actually bring it all together by saying that all of these problems can be solved if you simply focus on financial planning. Now, I know that was a rough example, but I hope you get the point I'm trying to make. I'm putting a link in the description below to an article that we've written. It has about 7 to 9 narrative structures, including these 2. So you can read up on more of them. There are some examples given there as well. And it'll help you pick and choose as to which structure applies the best to whatever scenario you might be in. And that's about it. If you have any more questions when it comes to things like communication, public speaking, or anything in that space, we have a bunch of in-depth articles and resources dedicated just for that. So go check out franticallyspeaking.com.